We live in unbelievably difficult, intense times where we're more divided than ever. I think that freedom of speech is not going to get us through this very difficult time that we're in. In the next few minutes, I'm going to propose an alternative that I think could radically revolutionize the way that conversations have, not just in the media, not just in the political sphere, but also in our very homes and our very businesses as well. This is the HP3 Show. We're here for high performance, high profit, and high purpose. My name is Tim Francis. I'm an entrepreneur in Austin, Texas. I'm a former varsity athlete turned entrepreneur. Many years ago, something like 2017, I was in a boardroom meeting. I was fairly new to being in board meetings, and I was a little bit scared and overwhelmed and intimidated, but overall it was a very good experience. And I got a lot of feedback that I had a lot of really intelligent things to say. The leader of the board meeting, the chairman, pulled me aside after the second day of board meetings, and he said something that would change my life forever. He said, "Tim, I can tell that you're very smart. In fact, oftentimes you know the problem and have the solution before other people in the room have even figured out what the data is telling them. Great job on that. At the same time, sometimes the way that you give feedback and you share your ideas makes it really difficult for other people to truly get the value of what it is that you are sharing with them. Maybe you have really valuable medicine for them, but it just tastes so bad that people can't digest it. I encourage you, Tim, to find a way to put some candy or some sweetener or something around that vital medicine, or else you're going to risk being really effective in your leadership." Wow, did that ever knock me back on my heels? It was a blind spot that I had. I thought that it was the most virtuous thing was just to offer in a candid kind of way my feedback. I thought it was a sign of intelligence and courage and strength and even righteousness that I was standing up for what was right, when in fact all I was doing was turning people off. There's that great expression that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And there's also so much to be said about finding the way to phrase something that maximizes how digestible that it is. So the thing is that sometimes it can be challenging to find what that right way to communicate is. I'm so delighted to say that in the Bhagavad-Gita, an ancient book from India, in chapter 17, text 15, it speaks exactly with a perfect little checklist of what to do to help us make sure that we're not only sharing our truth or the truth as we see it, but also that it is able to be received, that others can actually hear us and get the value of what it is we have to offer. So specifically, it says austerity of speech, which is like saying discipline of speech. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially and avoiding speech that offends. I had been really good in the boardroom at speaking in a way that was truthful and in a way that was beneficial. However, I was missing that third piece. To speak in a way that avoided offense was not on my radar. And it made me kind of tough to be around. So when I think about how important it is that we have freedom of speech, I think that that's really important, whether that's politically or in our homes or in the boardrooms or the locker rooms of our lives. I think, though, freedom of speech on its own is not effective. I think to go along with freedom of speech, we also need responsibility of speech. And if we can put those two together, it is remarkable at how we actually can share ideas and we can have difficult conversations and we can take what might be completely like a logjam situation and slowly start to tease it apart when we're really committed to speaking in a way that is truthful, beneficial, and avoids offense. So in no way, shape, or form am I here saying that we shouldn't speak our truth, that we should be muzzled or anything like that. What I am saying is I think that if we can find that extra heartbeat or two to pause and before we make our statement or make our reply, to do that mini checklist, is it truthful? Is it beneficial? Does it avoid offense? We can not only speak our truth, but we can also be heard in our truth. Just like there's freedom of speech, the responsibility of speech is the part that makes us hearable. When I think if we, even just in our homes and in our teams, raised our standard to speaking in that way, the ripple effect of that through our communities would be unmistakable, absolutely unmistakable. We don't necessarily need political leaders to take up this practice. Yes, I think it would make a massive difference if they did, but at the same time, we don't need it. We don't need this to be added to our school curriculums, although it would certainly be beneficial if it was. It can start in our homes. It can start in our businesses. And there's another great line in the Gita. It says, whatever great men do, ordinary men follow. And of course, that means women as well. For us to exercise that austerity or discipline of speech is us doing great things. And sometimes I acknowledge it can be emotionally like real hard not to just say what we want to say, especially with our loved ones, especially those that can't leave us because they're our parent or our child or they're our spouse or whatnot. Sometimes we get a little like lax on our hygiene, if you will, around communication. And it is a great man, a great woman thing to do is to pause, take a breath, and run through that little mini checklist. Keep in mind, all three need to be true, and not just the avoiding offense, but also being beneficial. There are times where I've been in situations where I know I've had something to say that is absolutely true, but it really wouldn't add into the situation. And so if I just keep my thoughts to myself, I'm actually being even more helpful to the situation. Now, as I mentioned, I think that we are in extraordinary times, and it's going to take great leaders like you and me doing the little things every single day that are going to add up to make a big difference. If you want to join me on this journey, I ask you to subscribe to my channel and also subscribe to my newsletter. It's at gohp3.com. HP3 stands for high performance, high profit, and high purpose. And I find that when all three of those are present, then life goes really well. If any one of those three is missing, life just kind of feels kind of heavy. Thanks so much for watching. Once again, I'm Tim Francis, and I will see you in the next one.